While the Nats are on the road this weekend, make Walters your spot to watch Team USA men's basketball take on Serbia in the Olympics, 11:15 a.m. on Sunday.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year. And plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Here it is. Swinging a long drive down the left field line. Wood giving chase deep in the corner along the warning track. He's leaping and he can't get it. And it's gone. Just over the top of the wall in the left field corner. A 3-run homer for Arenado gives the Cardinals a 5-2 lead. Here's the set of the pitch. Yepez hits a line drive to center field. Ciani is there, makes the catch. Abrams tags. Here he comes down the line, and the throw is cut off on the mound by Goldschmidt. So Abrams scores. It's a sacrifice fly for Juan Yepez. The Nationals have come back to tie this game here in the 7th. 2-0 count on Jacob Young. Fernandez sets at the letters. The right-hander delivers. Swinging a slicing line drive to right, chasing over Carlson. Leaps, can't get it. It's by him. It's going to the fence. This is going to clear the bases. Everybody scores. Young racing for third. He's in there standing with a 3-run triple over the leaping right fielder Carlson. And the Nationals lead 9-6 here in the 10th inning. Huge hit for Jacob Young.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Saturday, July 27th, 2024, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. The Nats on Friday night did not get no hit. No, they scored 10 runs. This in a 10-8, 10-inning win at the St. Louis Cardinals in Game 1 of a 3-game series. This was a game at which the Nats overcame a 5-2 fourth-inning deficit. The Nats for this regular season now are 48-56, including 3-7 in extra inning games. Coming up later in the show, a special shout out. If you via this podcast would like to send a shout out to someone who you care about, email Tim Shovers at natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you are listening to this podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can rate the podcast with a star rating. 5-star ratings are greatly appreciated. They help us out a lot. Thank you for doing them. MacKenzie Gore, he once again was not good, but the Nats bullpen once again was good, and the Nats offense was very good. 10 runs, 11 hits, which were a triple, 3 doubles and 7 singles, 8 walks, 5 for 18 with runners in scoring position. The Nats did strike out 14 times, but the offense was quite good, including scoring 4 runs in a top of the 10th, highlighted by a Jacob Young 3-run triple. Mark, this was a wild game, but this was a win for the Nats.
And they needed this, Al. And, as nice as the 6 runs were earlier to make up the deficit and at least get it to extra innings, I feel like they needed that final rally to make this thing official. If they just battle back and then they end up losing after all that, I don't think there's a good feeling going on. I know you can say, hey, we got no hit the night before. Good job to brush that off and put up a good night at the plate. But I think they needed this complete comeback, and it's their 28th comeback win of the season. This is one of their better ones, I think, actually, given who they got the production from, how they got it over the course of the game, how the bullpen did to finish that whole thing off after MacKenzie Gore's rough start, and to get the biggest hit of the game from the guy that we don't talk a whole lot about offensively, Jacob Young. That was arguably the biggest hit of his young career.
Yeah, Jacob Young needed that hit, I think, in a lot of ways. And props to him for coming through in that spot. And, the other thing, too, is it feels like the Nats had not won an extra inning game in so long. And I mentioned the record, 3-7. It felt like lately the game goes to extras and just things unravel for the Nats. That did not happen on Friday night. So, yeah, Jacob Young in this game as the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, 2 for 5 with the 3-run triple and a bunt single. So this was a Jacob Young specialty. Young in that Nats 4-run 10th, a 2-out, bases loaded, opposite field, 3-run triple to right field for a 9-6 Nats lead. That rally for the Nats in that 4-run 10th inning really was something. The Nats doing what they did in that inning, all with 2 outs. Luis Garcia Jr. drew an intentional walk. Then Trey Lipscomb, another guy who does not stand out often offensively, he draws a great 2-out 9-pitch walk despite having been down in the count at 1.02. And then that set up Jacob Young to come through with that great 3-run triple. That was just Jacob Young's 3rd extra base hit in this month of July. He has not been doing well offensively. If not for these bunt hits that he is adept at getting, he would not be getting on base much this month. But boy, was that a big hit. And that was a really good rally by the Nats.
And I'll be honest, he came up with the bases loaded and 2 outs. And I even thought to myself, is he going to try this suicide squeeze here with Nasim Nunez on third? Like, are they that desperate or that convinced that that's their best chance of scoring? I was glad to see them let him swing away. He worked it to a 2-0 count, and then he got something he could hit. And sometimes you need to see that for a guy whose first instinct sometimes is, well, just move the runners up or just get the ball down on the ground. No, you can produce big hits when you get into advantageous situations, and he was definitely in one there. So that was really big for him. And the walk by Lipscomb, he has not done much offensively, as we know. That was one of his best contributions to date. He has been swinging at everything out of the zone. He, I think, only got 1 pitch in the strike zone that entire at bat, and he swung at some bad pitches, but he found a way just to lay off when he absolutely had to on a 3-2 count, didn't let the moment become too big for him, drew the walk and set the stage for Jacob Young to come through. So for those two guys, 8-9, to be really the key to the rally, I think is huge for them. We need to see more production from the bottom of that lineup. They rely way too much on the guys in the top half of it and really have gotten almost nothing from the bottom half. And just to reiterate what you said about how long it's been in extra innings, their last extra inning win was June 11th in Detroit. The previous one, the only other one before that, was April 20th against the Astros. That's it. That's all they've done in extra innings. And this has been a problem for several years now, where they have consistently, I feel like, since the new rule came in with the automatic runner, their record in extra inning games has been horrendous. And that's something that ultimately you got to clean up. You got to win games that are close and tight like that and find a way to come through.
Well, especially this team, which is in a close game basically every game. I mean, the rule for the Nats this season, if you're new to watching this team, is it doesn't matter what the score is innings 1 through 6 because the game is going to be close innings 7 through 9. It just feels like that's the case with every Nats game. When the Cardinals put up that 5 spot in the bottom of the 3rd on Friday night, I said to myself, this game is still going to wind up close because like every Nats game winds up being close. And sure enough, this game was close. Trey Lipscomb in this game as the Nats starting 3rd baseman and number 8 batter, 1 for 4, had an infield single to go with that walk. We had 3 Nats who in this game each had at least 2 hits. We mentioned one of them in Jacob Young. Luis Garcia Jr., he had a nice game. He is the Nats starting 2nd baseman and number 7 batter, 2 for 4 with a 2-run double, an RBI single, and he drew that intentional walk. He also had a stolen base. Garcia in a Nats 2-run second, a 1-out 2-run double to the right center field gap for a 2-0 Nats lead, and he had to steal a 3rd base. Garcia in a Nats 1-run 4th, a 1-out RBI single to right field to cut the Nats deficit to 5-3, and Garcia in that Nats 4-run 10th drew the 2-out intentional walk. And then who else but Juan Yepez having yet another multi-hit game, a 3-hit game, in fact, for Yepez, who just cannot be denied right now. Juan Yepez in this game against his former team, right, the Cardinals. Yepez as the Nats starting 1st baseman and number 4 batter, 3 for 4 with an RBI double, 2 leadoff singles, and an RBI sac fly. Yepez in the Nats 2-run 2nd, leadoff single through the right side of the infield on an 0-2 pitch. Yepez in the Nats 1-run 4th, leadoff opposite field single through the right side of the infield. Yepez in the Nats 2-run 5th, 1-out RBI double to left field to cut the Nats deficit to 6-4. And Yepez in the Nats 1-run 7th, a 1-out RBI sac fly to tie the game at 6. Everything he did in this game in terms of producing came in a run-scoring inning for the Nats. It's crazy. He's only been up a few weeks. He's been insanely productive. And he now has become the regular cleanup batter. And like, you don't bat an eye. Like, he deserves to be the regular cleanup batter.
Remember all those nights that you were asking about Joey Meneses hitting cleanup or third? And, you know, why do they continue to stick with him? Because he had not done anything to deserve it. Would you have guessed that the guy who replaced him, Juan Yepez, would so ingrain himself as being so important to this lineup that they kind of have to hit him cleanup every night, and he's delivering for them. I don't know how long this is going to last, but you ride the wave as long as you can. Clearly, he's motivated against the Cardinals. He won't come out and say it, but he was great against them in spring training. He's been great against them now in the regular season. He was not happy the way that he got treated here, getting non-tendered after what he felt like didn't really get the same kind of opportunity last year as he did in 2022. So I'm sure there's some motivation there. But I'll tell you what, I've seen guys get into that situation facing their former team, and sometimes they don't channel those emotions in the right way. It can turn ugly at times. In this case, he has absolutely channeled it the right way and delivered for this team. And yeah, who would have thought it? But Juan Yepez has become invaluable to the Nationals over the last 3 weeks or so.
And it's funny because he, for AAA-Rochester this season, had been like decent, if not good, but not great. He got off to a really good start and then really cooled off. And so you really didn't know what to expect when the Nats called him up. I mean, it's not like he's some highly touted guy. He's not necessarily an older guy, age 26 season, but, you know, he's someone who, like you said, non-tendered. The Nats this past December signed him to a minor league contract, and he has hit like an MVP candidate since being brought up to the majors on July 5th. Cannot say enough good things about Juan Yepez. Offensively, a few other offensive standouts for the Nats in this win at the Cardinals on Friday night. C.J. Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and leadoff batter, 1 for 4 with an RBI infield single and 2 walks. And he went 3 for 3 on stolen bases. Great to see that. Abrams in the Nats 2-run fifth leadoff walk despite having been down at 1.02. And he had a steal of second base. Abrams in the Nats 1-run seventh leadoff walk. And he had a steal of second base. And he had a steal of third base. And then Abrams added on a tack-on run in that 4-run 10th, a 2-out RBI infield single on a chopper to the right side of the infield for a 10-6 Nats lead. And then the number 2 batter in the Nats lineup, Lane Thomas, starting right fielder, 1 for 4 with a double and 2 walks. So getting on base 3 more times, his on-base streak now at 23 games. He went 1 for 2 on stolen bases, and the instance of him getting thrown out in an attempted steal felt like it might loom large, ended up not doing so, but Thomas, top of the third, went out double to the left center field gap. Thomas in the Nats 1-run seventh, a walk, despite having been down at 1.12, and he stole second base. And then Thomas in the top of the ninth, with the game tied at 6, drew a leadoff walk. You love that. But he then got thrown out in an attempted steal of second base for the first out, and I'm sure that drove every Nats fan crazy. The Nats in this game did quite well on stolen bases, like we've talked about. Abrams 3 steals, Garcia had a stolen base, Thomas had a stolen base. But boy, Thomas getting thrown out in that spot did not feel good. Thankfully, it did not prove to doom the Nats.
You just cannot do that in that spot. And here's the thing. We've seen this happen way too often. They become very predictable late in a game when they get somebody on. Everybody in the ballpark knows they're going to run, and I feel like way too often they end up getting thrown out. And you see the catcher is calling for a pitch up and away. He's already hopping out of his stance as the pitch is coming in. They're completely anticipating it and getting the guy. Now, I believe, I don't know for a fact, but I believe the way these have worked is that Davey Martinez is giving the runner the green light. That doesn't mean they have to run on that pitch. That means if you get a good jump, if you feel like you can get it, go for it, but you don't have to. And I think too often some of these guys are maybe reading that as, I better go on this pitch. And everybody in the ballpark knows it's going to happen, and very often it's not working out for them. So fortunate it did not cost them in this one, but that is something that has cost them, I think, way too much here lately, and it's something they have to address. It's one thing to say you're going to be aggressive. You can't be so predictable that the other team knows it's coming. There are very few base runners out there good enough to steal a base when everybody knows they're going to steal a base. It's the hardest thing to do in this sport. They don't really have those guys who can do that consistently. And so I do think they have to watch themselves there. I want to mention one other thing about C.J. Abrams in his game. The total stat line doesn't look anything like that spectacular. What impressed me, he was patient the entire night, something we do not often see from him. His first 5 at-bats, every at-bat was either 6 or 7 pitches. Now, he struck out a couple times, but he worked the count, especially early in the game, in a way that he does not normally do. And I really liked to see that from him for a guy who sometimes gets over-aggressive. And then even the single, the infield single, where he busted it down the line in the 10th inning, that came on the 4th pitch of an at-bat. So for a guy who too often is just chasing at the first thing he sees, I really like to see the patience from him in this game. I hope there's something he can take from that.
Yeah, his 2 walks each was a leadoff walk in a run-scoring inning. It's good when you draw walks.
Hey, Nats Chat, want to tell you about Mint Mobile's premium wireless package starting at $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/natschat. That's mintmobile.com/natschat. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/natschat. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Pages at third, runner at first. The pitch is chopped toward the hole at short, and it's by Abrams and into left field for a base hit. Pages will score. Ciani holds at second as Wood throws it into third. A chopping ground ball single through the hole on the left side, and it's 6-3 St. Louis.
The Nats starting pitcher for this 10-8, 10-inning win at the Cardinals on Friday night was MacKenzie Gore. As we talked about on the last installment of the podcast, this felt like a big outing for Gore. He has not been in a good place lately. This was an opportunity to get right. Unfortunately, MacKenzie Gore did not get right. Gore in this game was bad for a 4th consecutive start and for a 5th time in 6 starts. He allowed 6 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 9 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 6 singles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded 3 strikeouts. He threw 90 pitches, 57 strikes versus 33 balls. Gore in the bottom of the 3rd allowed 5 runs on 2 homers, 2 singles, and a walk. All of that came over the first 5 batters of that bottom of the 3rd. The home runs were a 2-run homer by Mason Wynn on a bomb to left center to tie the game at 2, and a 3-run homer by Nolan Arenado to left field for a 5-2 Cardinals lead. The 2-run homer by Wynn going a projected 417 feet per Statcast. And then Gore in the bottom of the 4th allowed a run by giving up 3 consecutive singles to the first 3 batters he faced in that inning, including an RBI single by Mason Wynn through the left side of the infield for a 6-3 Cardinals lead. So another bad outing for Gore. It was odd how in the 5-run 3rd for the Cardinals, in the 1-run 4th for the Cardinals, it all happened early in the inning where Gore begins the inning in that 3rd, allowing each of the first 5 batters to get on base, and then in the 4th, allowing each of the first 3 batters to get on base. But disappointing to see this. He is in a real rut. His numbers for this season have gotten turned upside down. They are no longer what they had been. And if you look at MacKenzie Gore, I mentioned, 4 straight bad starts. MacKenzie Gore now, in this month of July for it, has an ERA of 8.27. 5 starts for Gore in July. The ERA for this month is at 8.27.
And just the fact he got through 5 innings felt like a win in a lot of ways, given how bad he's been. So no, he is not satisfied with this at all. He knows it. He knows the issue. And that's what made this game so odd, I think, from his standpoint. Those first 2 innings looked really good. He gets through 2 scoreless on 24 pitches. So for the first time in forever, it feels like getting quick outs and not running up the pitch count the way we had seen from him in the past. And then in the 3rd inning, what happens? He fell behind all 5 of those hitters. that he either gave up a hit to or walked. I think it was 2-0 to 4 of the 5 hitters that he faced. We know that it's a hard way to go about living life as a pitcher. Most likely you're going to suffer as a result of it, and he did. Now, I give him credit because he came back from that, and he did finish it kind of strong. The 4th inning was a little bit weird, some kind of seeing eye singles in some of those cases. He got a big double play from Contreras to make sure the 4th inning didn't get any worse. And then with a man in scoring position in the 5th, got Donovan to fly out and then struck out Dylan Carlson to end the inning. And I mean, we're maybe grasping at straws here, but I think there's something to take away from that he didn't let the whole thing fall apart on him. He got through the 5th. As it turned out, kept the game close for them. It's a baby step, but it's a step he's going to have to take. And now can he take the next step beyond that? And he's in a bad place now. He knows it. He feels like he knows what the issue is. It's falling behind in the count. He has to be able to trust himself to get ahead and throw the ball over the plate. But he's got to prove it now. And for all the talk of this guy, the future ace, is he pitching like a true frontline starter? He has the ability, yes, but he has not proven himself yet, not over the long haul. And until he does, I think we have to kind of keep that in mind and not just anoint him into being something that he has not quite yet earned.
You look at his numbers now for this regular season, 21 starts. The ERA is up to being 4.51. The whip is at 1.50. He's gone from having a good season, which we were saying for a while. He's having a good season, right? He's having a step forward season. We're not saying that anymore. He's now having a, dare I say, Corbin-esque season. And, to the point about like Gore and him supposedly being an ace and us wanting him to be an ace, you come into the season, your top 2 starting pitchers in theory are Josiah Gray and MacKenzie Gore. Now look at where we're at with those guys. Gray is set to miss probably most of next season with this massive UCL surgery that he just underwent. And MacKenzie Gore is staring at an ERA of 4.51. And it just shows you like you can plan for things and you can look to 2 people as being certain things, but there are no guarantees with that. So, hopefully Gore can get himself right, but he's been struggling now for long enough to where it's not just like a slump. It's more than that at this point. And it's kind of an unraveling, to be honest with you. I mean, again, good in April, good in May, good in June. But then July is now really falling apart for him, and it's unfortunate. But, it's a funny deal. The last 2 Saturdays, the Nats get these ultra short starts from Mitchell Parker and MacKenzie Gore and get great outings from the bullpen and end up winning. This didn't exactly follow that formula because Gore didn't last for an ultra short period of time, but he wasn't good. But the Nats bullpen once again did come through. Boy, this bullpen is being leaned on a ton. A lot continues to be asked of this bullpen. But the bullpen again comes through. 5 Nats relievers combined to allow 2 runs, 1 earned in 5 innings. Derek Law tossed a scoreless bottom of the 6th. Dylan Floro tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th. Robert Garcia a perfect bottom of the 8th with 2 swinging strikeouts. Looking more and more like your potential next Nationals closer should Kyle Finnegan be traded. Jacob Barnes tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th. To preserve a 6-all tie. And then the reliever who actually gave up runs was Kyle Finnegan. He in the bottom of the 10th allowed 2 runs, 1 earned, gave up a 2-out, 2-run homer by Paul Goldschmidt to left field to cut the Nats lead to 10-8. What I thought was interesting was this. Davey previously had gone to Finnegan in the 9th innings of these tie games. He doesn't do that here, goes to Barnes, saves Finnegan for extras, and that actually ends up working out, although Finnegan did give up a 2-run homer. So I guess maybe you say it didn't work out like it was supposed to, but the Nats do end up winning the game. But that was a departure from the way that Davey has previously handled this exact situation. Instead of going to Finnegan in the 9th, saved him for the 10th.
Yeah, so when they're at home, he definitely uses them in the 9th because it's a walk-off situation. On the road, you have that dilemma. Use your closer in the tie game or save him for what could still be a save situation in extra innings. So I did think it was interesting. I think maybe the part of the lineup had something to do with it. But also he admitted afterwards that he's talked to Jacob Barnes about you're going to start getting a little higher leverage role on this team. And I think it's interesting because the Hunter Harvey trade obviously has created some of that, but this may also be an anticipation of what else is still to come. Even if Kyle Finnegan is not traded next week, and I think it's 50-50 if he is or not, I think it's 90-10 that Dylan Floro gets traded as a guy who is in the last year of a 1-year contract and a veteran who's probably going to get picked up and go help some other team in contention. So that's another prominent role in the bullpen that somebody's got to step up and Phil. And I think they like Barnes, what he's done this year, to try to use him some more in those spots. So between him and Garcia, you're going to see them being used later in games in higher leverage spots. I really liked how Garcia looked in this one. He threw some fantastic changeups to get strikeouts in the 8th inning. I agree there could be a situation here in the next week or so where he's actually pitching the 9th inning just based on what else they have available to them at that point, depending on what happens at the trade deadline. But he is a guy who I think we're going to see more of in big spots the rest of the way, and we may be seeing some Jacob Barnes as well. And as far as Finnegan goes, I need to look it up, but I feel like his numbers in non-save situations are way worse than save situations. I feel like he's done this. Maybe it's that, lack of adrenaline, that understanding, well, I can ease up a little bit. It's not the end of the world if I give a home run here. He's done this several times in games when he's used either because they have a big lead or even at times when they use him because he hasn't pitched in a while and they just need to get him an inning of work. I feel like those are his worst outings in a lot of cases. Certainly, the home run continues to be his one bugaboo, really. It didn't cost him in this one, but almost any time he is blowing it or giving it up in the 9th inning, there's a home run involved.
He gives up a lot of home runs for an ace reliever. And when you think about what the Nats could get for Finnegan in a trade, and we've talked about, wow, they got so much for Harvey. What might the package for Kyle Finnegan look like? And as we discussed recently, some of the advanced numbers on Finnegan are actually not as favorable as you might think. And a big part of that is him giving up these homers. 7 home runs allowed in 43 and 2/3 innings in this regular season. Kyle Finnegan has allowed the exact same number of homers as Jordan Weems has allowed. That's not the kind of company you want to be in if you're Kyle Finnegan. So it's an odd deal. He's got an ERA at 2.47. He's 28 of 32 on saves. The whip is less than 1, 0.98. You look at all of that, you say, wow, he's having a really good season. And I think that he is, but when you dig deeper, there are some things not to like. He gives up homers. If you look at his BABIP allowed, it's really low, so there is some good luck that's happened here. I mean, I go back to that game a few weeks ago, the great Lane Thomas catch as he's approaching the outfield wall. Finnegan's lucky that wasn't a game-ending extra base hit off him. So, yeah, you wonder how other teams are evaluating Kyle Finnegan and how some of these flaws might impact a trade package for him.
Hi Nats fans, this is Tim Newmark, DC area composer, longtime Nationals fan, and proud composer of the Nats Chat podcast theme song. If you're enjoying the music and would like to hear more, check out timnewmark.com/streaming or just search for Tim Newmark wherever you listen to music. To find the rest of the song you're hearing now, search for the title Double in the Sun. Go Nats!
A milestone moment creates a beautiful memory for years to come. And now's the time to celebrate it with 35% off select pieces at Blue Nile. Blue Nile makes your most valuable moments sparkle with jewelry gifts of the highest quality offered at the best price. You'll also find expert guidance and the level of convenience you'd expect from the world's leading online jeweler. Right now, take advantage of 35% off select pieces at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com. BlueNile.com.
Here's your report for AAA for the game played on Friday. Dylan Cruz notably moved to right field defensively, doubled in the leadoff spot. Brady House moved down to 5th in the order, pair of singles for him. Drew Millis was behind the plate. He had 2 hits as well. And on the pitching front, Joe LaSorsa got the hold, gave up an unearned run while pitching 4 outs. His ERA is at 2.05 this season. Someone to keep your eye on for possibly moving up to Washington in the near future. Now back to the show.
Finnegan ready, he deals. Swinging a fly ball left center field. James Wood and Jacob Young come together. Who will call, who will catch? Wood does, with Young angling behind him. James Wood box him out, make the catch, and the Nationals hold on for a 10-8 win to snap their 3-game losing streak. They take game 1 of the series here against the Cardinals, despite St. Louis scoring 2 in the last of the 10th.
Yes, the trade deadline is Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, but if you didn't know better, you'd think that the trade deadline is like on Saturday morning. There have been so many trades in MLB over the last 24, 48 hours. So I do wonder if this weekend we might have another trade or two by the Nats. Like, it's not a given that all the trades happen on Tuesday. It could be on Saturday or Sunday or Monday the Nats make a trade or trades.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's on high alert right now. You saw what happened around the rest of the league on Friday, and a pretty interesting trade that could have ramifications for the Nationals between the Phillies and Orioles. A very odd, unusual trade deadline deal between two contending teams, each looking for something specific. The Phillies are a team that absolutely has been connected to Finnegan, and there was some thought that maybe Lane Thomas was also on their radar. They were looking for a right-handed outfielder as maybe part of a platoon. They end up getting Austin Hayes from the Orioles, so that would seem to take Thomas out of that equation for them. But they gave up Sir Anthony Dominguez, one of their long-standing late-inning relievers, as a right-hander. And so I think that trade makes it more likely that they need to go out and get a reliable late-inning right-handed reliever. And like I said, I've been told Finnegan's very much on their radar. Doesn't mean he's the number one target. Doesn't mean he's definitely going there. And I still believe that Mike Rizzo is going to set the price very high. But something to watch. I think the Phillies, when it comes to trading for a closer, I feel like that's one of those moves that it depends on how desperate is a team. Like how much are they really willing to go all in to try to win right now? And look at the teams that are most in that situation. It's teams that haven't won it in a while, or maybe have never won it, who have aggressive GMs, aggressive owners. Maybe they've been to the playoffs in recent years, but haven't been able to finish it off. I think the Phillies fall squarely in that department. They have spent the last couple years going all in, and that's been Dave Dombrowski's mindset almost everywhere he's ever been. He's a very aggressive GM at the trade deadline. I'm really watching what they're doing. If they are interested in Finnegan, if they think he's the guy, I could see them meeting the price that Mike Rizzo wants, because that's how much they really do want to try to win.
What about the Orioles as a destination for Kyle Finnegan? Is that a possibility? Because also on Friday night was the Orioles closer, Craig Kimbrel, struggling yet again. The O's lost to the San Diego Padres at Oriole Park at Camden Yards 6-4. Kimbrel in that game, top of the ninth, allowing 2 runs, gave up a tie-breaking 2-out, 2-run homer by our new good friend Jurickson Profar on a moonshot to center field for a 6-4 Padres lead. Kimbrel at times has been good this season, but in too many other instances has not been good. We know about the Nationals and the Orioles and the two teams having had many problems off the field over the years. But we also know that there is new ownership for the O's and David Rubenstein. Do you think that the Nats would be willing to do a trade with the O's? This is not something we basically ever see. Do you think that new ownership for the O's might change that?
There is only one team in the major leagues the Nationals have never made a trade with since coming to D.C. in 2005, and that is the Baltimore Orioles, and you know the reason why that is. But the hindrances to that are not necessarily there anymore, and there's been at least discussion about the two ownership groups, the current group in D.C. and the new group in Baltimore, wanting to have a better relationship with each other and being willing to work with each other on a variety of things. That would go a long way toward establishing that there's a much better relationship than there ever has been in the past. So I would say if it's up to Mike Rizzo, he doesn't care. He'll trade a guy to anybody if he gets the right return for it, whether it's a division rival, whether it's your geographic interleague rivals who you've been in court with for years or not. I absolutely think Mike Rizzo makes the deal. It's only a matter of if ownership would step in and say, no, we're not doing that. And frankly, if I'm the Lerner family or if I'm David Rubenstein, I'm not sure why I would say no to that under the current circumstances. So absolutely, if they are that desperate for it and they're willing to give up, and we know they have plenty of prospects, if they're willing to give up what Mike Rizzo wants in return for Kyle Finnegan, I don't think that should be a hindrance. I think they'd be willing to make the move.
Yeah, the Cold War has been between the Lerners and the Angelos family. The Cold War has not been between Mike Rizzo and Mike Elias. And, you know, something that we have never talked about, but I think might have been telling was this. And I read to you from a press release that the Nats put out on May 3rd, 2024. When the Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles face each other for the first time in 2024, they will honor their respective fans and cities in a special way by taking part in 2024 Beltway Series Cities Connected. Both teams will don their popular City Connect uniforms during Game 1 of the Beltway Series, presented by Inova at Nationals Park on Tuesday, May 7th at 6:45 p.m. The point is this. They did this joint presentation of, hey, we're each going to be wearing our City Connect jerseys. they were holding hands together. They were standing unified together, the Nationals and the Orioles. That is the kind of thing you would have never seen had the Angelos family not sold the O's to the group led by David Rubenstein. And I know that that's a little thing, but that did feel like the extending of an olive branch, and maybe just maybe a sign that the ice between the two teams is beginning to melt a little bit, and that maybe, just maybe, there can be some kind of a cohesive relationship between the two organizations to where they can at least do a trade between the two teams.
Well, maybe they can take their cues from the Olympics. You know, you have the whole Olympic spirit of, you know, warring nations and countries that don't get along. You know, North Korea and South Korea marching in together as a unified country, in theory, when they hosted the Olympics a few years back. Maybe they can take a cue from what's going on in Paris right now and say, hey, for this brief period of time, we can work together on something. Let bygones be bygones. We can be rivals again after it's all over. But perhaps there is a trade to be made between these two bitter rivals.
Well, we've asked our loyal listener, Rich, to listen to the podcast in the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. I don't know what the equivalent of the DMZ between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore would be, but maybe Rich can somehow play a role in the Nats and O's coming together.
We've got to have listeners in Howard County. That's kind of the middle ground, right? If you live in Howard County, you watch both teams, you get both teams on TV, you're equidistant. You may be the key to all this happening.
Bring the Nats and the O's together. Let's see if we can do that. Hey, we have a shout out that we want to deliver. Chris and his wife, they took their 4-month-old to Nationals Park this past Thursday for little Damon's first major league game. He was decked out in Nationals newborn gear, and he saw a no-hitter, and that would be a no-hitting of the Nats. Chris is a new baseball fan, wants to know whether or not seeing a no-hitter at the expense of your favorite team is an unbelievable memory, or is little Damon doomed to a life of sports fandom pain with his dad? Thank you for that. That's an excellent question. I guess the good news is that Damon is only 4 months old, so he doesn't remember it on his own. So when he gets older, if it's a good memory, you can tell him about it. And if it's a bad memory, then you can make no mention of it.
Do you know how many sports writers I've known who've gone decades and decades of covering baseball without seeing a no-hitter in person? So for it to happen at the age of 4 months, I think that bodes well for that young man over the rest of his baseball watching life. Hopefully he gets to see one from the team that he's rooting for someday. But I was thinking about this because I know, it happens sometimes that opposing team throws one in your ballpark. And I feel like maybe more so in the past than now. I remember growing up watching these things, you would see the fans of the home team kind of get up and cheer for the guy at a certain point and appreciate what was happening, that this was a rare thing. And so you get to witness history. Maybe that's not as much the case anymore. Maybe they become a little too common, although, it's still pretty rare. I've seen them myself, so it's not as big a deal for me, but I can completely understand if you were a Nationals fan at the game, as disappointed as you are, you don't want your team to be no-hit. There is something to be said for getting to witness baseball history in person, and you don't know if you're ever going to get that chance again. So once it gets to the point that, you get to the 8th and 9th inning, if you want to root for that, by all means, enjoy it. It's a great memory. It's a great thing to be able to say someday you saw. And then it certainly helps when your team can come back and score 10 runs the next day to win and put it behind them.
It is interesting. No-hitters have become more common. Like you said, they are still rare. But if you look at the last, say, 20, 25 years in MLB, there have been a good number of no-hitters to where when it happens, it's not this oh my goodness, I can't believe that just happened kind of a thing anymore. I remember when I was a kid, a no-hitter, wow, that was a really big deal. It's not what it was. It's now kind of oh, that's interesting. What else happened in sports yesterday? That kind of a thing. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on our website, natschatpodcast.com, in which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Here's the set. Fernandez deals. Swinging a slow tapper right side, charging in the first baseman Goldschmidt. He'll shovel to the pitcher, covering, close play, and safe is the call. Abrams beats it. Jacob Young will score, and the Nationals lead 10-6.
Ready to level up your career? Text DISH to 44043 now to dive into a world of exciting technician opportunities at DISH. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, DISH offers the perfect platform for your success. Connect with us today to discover how you can be part of a dynamic team driving innovation. Connect today and join the DISH family, where innovation meets opportunity. Text DISH to 44043 to kickstart your journey towards a rewarding career.